Hello, everybody. In this video, I'd like to talk about some recent tweets that have been going on and some of my replies to some of them and how I think the future of identity will work on the metanet. I've got some, here's my OBS. Everybody should be able to see that now. I've got some tweets here that I was looking at. Firstly, I want to start out with this one here. Where Alex Agate has said, Paymail is the way to go when you want privacy, reliability, and speed. So I quote tweeted Alex Agate of Handcash here, and what I said was, Paymail is centralized and flawed. It's nothing more than a ploy by Web 2 companies to pretend to be on Web 3. Why would I say something like this? Well, let's think about what a Paymail is, what Web 2 is, and what Web 3 is. So a Paymail is kind of like an email, right? Let me open up here a text edit. But a Paymail is, Alice at, some company.com. Kind of like an email, right? And Web 2 is when companies control users, right? And Web 3 is when users have choice. So, if my entire Web 3 identity is at a domain is controlled by some company. And that means that company controls my identity. And that is bad. If some company goes out of business, my identity goes away. And if somebody wants to contact me and some company has gone away, well, they have no way to email me. Or, in the case of Paymail, to send me payments. Paymail is kind of like email, except it's supposed to be for payments and stuff on Bitcoin. And so anyways, my reply kind of makes more sense when you view it through this lens. Web 3 is about making sure that when users want to use the internet, they don't have a problem when a company decides to go away. A company like Handcash, for example. So, then someone, of course, is going to, call me out and say, can you compete? Let's see it, right? So, I quote tweeted here myself. I essentially just, described this same kind of idea. What does Paymail need to fix in order to work properly? It's really just a federated message bus, etc. But long and short, Paymail is a problem because it's run by one company. And a user registers and subjugates their identity to the whims of that one company. The federated identity system that Babbage has created moves beyond this. And I want to talk a little bit about how it works. In the Babbage identity system, we have the concept of certifiers, which are kind of like Paymail in that they kind of bind a user's identity attributes, maybe a handle or a username, to their public key. But unlike Paymail, you don't just have one. You can have many. So if we go back here to my document, we may have Alice at somecompany.com, but, Alice might have another certifier, another person who lets everyone know who Alice is. Now, whoever Alice is talking to chooses which identity oracles, certifiers, what have you, which people they trust. And so suppose I trust 20 different people and someone comes to me and wants to interact. Well, I can check with those 20 people who I trust and see which one of them has registered a name or a handle, right, for the person I'm talking to. And that's important because it could be one of any of the 20. And that means that if one of them, say somecompany.com, goes away, well, it doesn't matter. Because in Web3, right, we've created a distributed architecture in which the users have choice. Who do you want to trust? Who do you want to resolve these things? And if one of those people goes away, well, I've got multiple, right? I'm distributed, I'm federated platform, or a single company, or a single handle to identify myself, to receive payments even, to interact with the world. So that's a big difference between Web 2 and Web 3, and something that is important. So people should understand that. Paymail is centralized and flawed because, well, I hate to assume malicious intent here, and I actually don't want to, but it seems to me like, someone who's running a Paymail system and trying to get everybody on board with Paymail here would benefit if everybody registered Paymails at that company. Why? Because then whenever I want to identify myself to anyone ever, I would be relying on that company. And then when all my money resides in that company's account, right? When all my digital assets, all of my NFTs, all of my tokens, all the things I think are valuable, all the certificates associated with my identity that anchor me to who I really am and the accomplishments and the achievements that I've gotten, all of that links back to that one company through that one Paymail handle. And that's a problem. Because then, if that company decides their transaction fees are going to go up, well, I don't have choice. I don't have competition. My identity is siloed, just like on Web 2. So nobody can realistically claim that they are on Web 3 until they move away from this model where the users are subjugated to the platform. Because I don't want a platform. I want a system where users are in control. And this is not what Paymail is. Paymail is a system where somecompany.com is in control, where we don't have another choice. Paymail is Web 2, right? And yes, different people can have Paymail handles at different companies. But when Paymail is used for more than just message relay, when it is used for more than just exchanging data as a dumb pipe between users where they can talk to each other and interact directly, when it's more than just peer-to-peer exchange or a common carrier, then it becomes something centralized, something siloed, and something we need to avoid. So on Web3, how does this work, right? I'm going to delve a little bit more into detail about my other replies here. When I replied here, I talked about this, and then I got a couple of responses. One of them was, well, where can I use your systems? What am I actually talking about here? And what I'm talking about is the federated identity architecture, where users pick who they trust. And I talked about this on stage in London, LBC 2024. Babbage gave a presentation where we talked about this. And in short, right, we've created a few different apps. And these apps are Web3 in that if Babbage goes away, right, the interfaces and protocols used by these apps will still remain intact, and someone else can come along and pick up and allow these apps to continue running. And without needing to have any changes by the people who created the apps either. So we're showing off these little demos here. And one of them is for peer-to-peer payments. You can search for somebody by their identity. And that identity is trusted, meaning people choose who they trust. Not it's trusted by somecompany.com like we have in Paymail. But it's trusted because the users choose who they want to resolve and certify particular attributes about a person, say their handle or their name, their photo. And then users are able to find each other and exchange payments. So I publish the app and I publish the source code. We're also integrating script contracts, more advanced than the kinds of contracts that can be done on other platforms. And it also uses the same identity system. So users can find each other, interact using a coin flip contract. They can flip a coin in a provably fair way, and they can do so without the need to rely on a single entity to be their wallet, without the need to rely on a single entity to resolve their identity. And we also created another app, that I linked here for allowing people to accept payments on a WordPress site using using Bitcoin and using this system as well. But this is a discussion that people need to engage with. They need to ask themselves whether they want to live in a world where we have Paymail and we have one company at the center controlling identity and becoming a gatekeeper again, or whether we have a distributed architecture that actually scales and that puts users in control of the apps they use, the wallets they use, the interoperability that comes with that, and the identity platforms and certifiers that bind these identity attributes, right? The identity attributes need to be certified in a way that everybody chooses who they trust. Everybody chooses how identity is to be resolved. The final thing I want to do here is just show this. On the MetaNet, I have a few apps. And I've been instrumental in creating a lot of these apps recently. But I've been producing more documentation recently, and I want to see more developers plug into this way of building. So I have my apps, I have my identity, and here I can see all the different certificates that attest particular things about me. And I can look into more details about each specific one. So, we've got some unknown certificates here. And I think this is because I'm actually on staging, on my staging network versus on production. And I haven't registered them on the federated registries. But what I wanted to show here is I can pick who I trust. So Social Cert certifies Discord handles, Twitter handles, things like that. Identicert certifies my government ID. Everett Trust Services certifies just common, APIs and systems. But people choose who they trust. And they can add new ones, right? And everybody can endorse whatever they want about whoever they want and then lobby others to trust them. What does this enable? This enables a world in which I don't have one single central Paymail handle that identifies myself. If I want to go to an app, let's say PurePay, and I want to pay somebody directly without the need for Paymail, well, I can see an incoming payment from somebody, from one of my certifiers, who I trust, right? You can see Social Cert here, right? This is an X handle, a Twitter handle, certified by Social Cert. And because I trust Social Cert, that's why I'm seeing who this is. It's linked to their key by the person who I trust. And there can be many of these. So if I want to send a payment back to Braden, I can search. And I can see that he certified his email address with Social Cert. And I can also see that he certified his Twitter handle. And so I can click on either of these. I can see the same key. And I can send an amount of money. For example, 10 cents. So I'll just go ahead and I can see that someone is requesting to, use the PurePay app with this person. And I know who this is because he's certified by someone who I trust. And then I can grant the necessary permissions. It's going to ask me for the transaction. I'll go ahead and grant that. And like that, the payment is sent. This is the kind of architecture that works. Now I'll accept the payment that Braden actually sent me. He sent me, 4 cents. I'll go ahead and accept it. So this is the kind of architecture that puts users at the center, that allows them to have choice. Because when users can choose what kind of experience they want, which people get to resolve user identity in the apps and services that they use, we can move beyond a world of Paymail. We can move beyond a world of Web 2, because Paymail is fundamentally Web 2. Paymail does not make users have choice. Paymail is when companies control users. We need to move beyond it. It's time we standardize and interoperate. This PeerPay app does not require Babbage software to work. It does not require the Babbage servers to be online to work. If I open the network tab of PeerPay, and if I then go ahead and try to search for somebody, say my colleague Mike, and if I look at the requests going out when I do this, they are not going out to the internet, to some centralized web server. These requests are going to localhost on my own machine. If the Babbage MetaNet client, which runs on localhost on my own machine, disappeared tomorrow, somebody else could come along and create new software that follows the same specifications and that enables this app to work. That is important because if my company goes out of business, Web3 can continue to work. If I go to the specification, right, you might think, yeah, that's great, but this is some proprietary API. I don't know where the documentation is. Well, firstly, I want to show you something. If I go to this localhost URL when my software is running, you can see how I've coded all of my different API endpoints. There's not very many of them. So you can copy this and write your own software, implement the same API, and then you think all these apps are going to work? Well, yes, they will. They'll enable the same exact functionality as what we have now. And I've gone beyond that too. OpenStandards.cache is a website where you can go to understand Web 3.0 standards. So I can go to this repository and I can read the exact specification for how users are able to communicate with their wallets. Every wallet should follow a standard that is compatible, just like every web browser on Web 2. What kind of world do you want to live in? A world where every wallet has a proprietary API and is non-standard, or a world where everybody's able to interoperate? Because I have defined a specification here, and I'm not saying this is the, from on high, the almighty specification that we must all follow. But I am saying that this is a start. And people can implement these specifications, and people can enable this interoperability, and these discussions can happen. And right now, what am I hearing? What am I hearing from my people in the BSV industry who are also trying to create wallets? What am I hearing from the people who are trying to enable these kinds of technologies? I'm hearing Paymail is the way to go if you want privacy, reliability, and speed. And when I see these things, when I see people telling me that Paymail is the way to go, when you want reliability and speed and privacy, of all things, privacy? When I'm sending all of my payments to a central server who can process them, is that privacy? No. No, that is not privacy. That is a central server having access to all of my payments. I'm sorry. This is ridiculous. And I have tried to reach out to many different companies in this space. And I have tried to facilitate dialogue and interoperability. And we have had some progress with some companies in making this happen, and I look forward to continuing that dialogue. But there is a limited opportunity window here to make these things happen. There is a limited window of opportunity to enable users to be in control over their digital selves and to give them the privacy, the ability to transact, and the ability to choose who they want to trust and how they want to resolve their identities. There is a limit to how long this can take because centralized platforms are crumbling and the world is searching for a solution. And the world is either going to be conned and duped once again into another Web 2-esque platform like Paymail, where a company controls your identity, or the world is going to realize that we've got to do something more, something better, something where users actually have a chance to control their destiny, to move between platforms. A world where companies aren't so arrogant as to say that if they go out of business, well, you are all going out of business too. We're going to take you all down with us. Because I say that's not the future. I say the future is when users actually demand interoperability between platforms. So that if a company goes away, the user has the ability to continue their digital existence. That aspect of their identity as managed by that company does not go away. That is Web 3.0. And whoever's on board with that, I look forward to haggling through all of these different things. I look forward to spending 10 hours in a meeting with you, arguing over what's the best way to do key derivation, what's the best name for a variable. But if you're on Web 2.0, if you're here to sell out users, if you're here to erode their dignity and their privacy and their trust in the name of short-term profits because you think that's the kind of world we live in, well, then I'm here to say you're wrong. And Paymail is a Web 2.0 technology. And those who support it need to do some introspection about what kind of world you want to live in. I may be juvenile, I may be idealistic, I may be incorrect in a lot of different ways. But this is what I'm here for. This is why I wrote more BRCs openly. This is why I gave away more intellectual property openly, freely, than anyone else. And for those that really know what's going on, you can check out BRC 80. You can check out BRC 83. And you can learn how to scale Bitcoin properly. Because this is the technology that I believe in. And collaborating openly, sharing protocols and standards, these are things I believe are valuable. So I look forward to hearing more from people who want to build a future where users have control. And I intend to pursue that type of vision on every project I work with, on every, client I onboard to my systems. Because there are a lot of things we can do once we realize the potential of this technology. There are a lot of industries ripe for disruption. There are industries using paper records. We can move beyond that. We can give people more efficiency and more interoperability and more control. And we can do it in a way that does not compromise on user privacy. That's about all I have to say in this one. Thank you for bearing with me. I am not perfect. I have many flaws. But I want to acknowledge I'm here to acknowledge that we all have flaws and users have flaws, and they're not all going to behave the way we want. But that's the world we live in. And we, as the people who create new companies, just because users have flaws doesn't mean that we should try to convince all of them to be part of our platform and to silo their identity within our system so that we can try to make them perfect. It's not our role to do that. It's our role to give users more power than they've ever had before, because that's the only thing the history has shown drives things forward and allows civilization to advance. And the digital has become a choke point for civilization. And I'm here to say, I don't believe that's the way forward. And that's, I think, everything I have to say in this video. So, let's chat. I'm not here to try to insult anybody. I'm not trying to make anything personal. I'm just here to make sure this technology gets built the best way. And, we're all human, and we should try to get together to create the kind of world that we can bear to live in, and we can bear to send the future generations into. That's all I have to say. So thank you very much.